Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Zone Blitz. I'm Vince Miller, as always, joined by my co-host Ashton Overholt, and we're here to talk about a Week 11 that had quite a few interesting games.
Yes, it did. Yes, it did.
Yes, so we'll just get right into it. And some of these, maybe we'll have thoughts on. Some of these, maybe we won't. Maybe we'll just read the score. But we'll go down the list and see what there is that we want to talk about. Um, Kansas State 34, West Virginia 17. Kind of a mid-tier Big 12 matchup. Probably not a lot to talk about there.
No one cares. Yep.
No one cares. All right, Mississippi State 43, Auburn 34. This one we have some thoughts on, I'm sure.
We do. Yes, we do. Like 28-3 is a famous score for those of us that live in Georgia. A 28-3 lead. We saw another one of those get vanished. That lead. Hey, Bo Nix, by the way, and I'm not sure if this is a defense route, but like it's come out since that he broke his ankle actually in that game, as
Crazy.
he since had surgery. So yeah, I don't know. Like it's probably what we should have expected. Really, we shouldn't have been surprised because you have two of the most bipolar teams in all of college football playing each other, and it's like we should have been expecting that of course that was going to happen. If it would have happened in any one of these games, it probably would have been Mississippi State versus Auburn. So hey, credit, yeah, Mike Leach, a big win for Mississippi State. That's another team that we just cannot figure out. Really, both of these teams just really can't figure them out at all. So I mean, for Auburn, there's back-to-back losses, and yeah, that is starting to tail off a little bit here towards the end. They still have Alabama left here in 2 weeks yet, so
Yeah.
without a Bo Nix, with no Bo Nix to throw, so I don't know. Did you watch it at all? Like, I caught bits and pieces.
So I didn't watch like the first half or anything, and I saw Auburn was up big, and I just kind of dismissed it.
Yeah,
And then, and then I caught the score again once it was all of a sudden close, and at that point I started watching a fair amount. Mississippi State scored like 31 consecutive points or something.
40.
Was it 40 then?
It was a 40 nothing run. Yeah,
Unbelievable. Yeah. Man, like props I guess to Mike Leach. Like I didn't think this Mississippi State team was very good, but
yeah.
they're having a pretty good season. Like the Egg Bowl could legitimately decide who's second place in the SEC East.
Oh
I
yeah.
mean West.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, West, sorry.
Yep.
But yeah, like the Egg Bowl actually has like real stakes this year.
Right. The best part is, I don't know if you do this. I torture myself with this, but you can go on like ESPN the app, and you can like look at in-game win percentages for
Yes.
people. And it went Auburn had a large chunk of the game where they were at like 97, 98, 90. Yeah, there's a 98 and a half. And then it just swings violently all the way back to Mississippi State, and then Mississippi State finishes
Yes.
at 99. Those are just awful. Like those screenshots are terrible. So
Yeah.
don't torture yourself with them, but they are kind of fun.
Yeah, they are a little bit. Okay. Where should we go next? Oh,
Baylor, Oklahoma.
that's where I was heading. The big upset of the afternoon. Baylor 27, Oklahoma 14.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Caleb Williams
He's
was
not going to win the
bad.
Heisman. Yeah, he's not going to win the Heisman now. This is confirmed. Yep.
That's over. Like we actually saw Spencer Rattler come into the game,
We did. Yeah,
and it's not like he was hardly any better.
No, he was not.
So is Oklahoma just like they're decidedly not that great? Apparently, like they're, or was this just a bad day?
I mean, yeah, the correct answer is yes, probably on both accounts. But like they're good. They're good, but they're not okay. So this was a Baylor team that, remember, like last week they lost to TCU, and we knew that they were like looking ahead, right?
Right.
Like that was a look ahead game for them. And like the positive thing is that they actually were looking ahead. Like they spent all of that
Yeah.
prep time on Oklahoma apparently, and then come out and that's a massive win for Dave Aranda and crew.
Yeah.
Like that is a huge win for them, and they were just a better team. Like they were better than Oklahoma, and it's not like Oklahoma was moving the ball and like it was fluke turnovers and stuff. Not really. Like Baylor was physical. They ran the ball far more effectively than Oklahoma did. And their defense, that is a really impressive showing from the Baylor defense. Aranda was, that's impressive to slow Lincoln Riley down to 14 points in a game. Like that's very impressive. The committee looks like they got it right. They had Oklahoma ranked at 8. I'm sure they'll drop down a ways. But yeah, I think I was more impressed with Baylor than I was with Oklahoma. For me, this showed way more about Baylor than Oklahoma.
So other people have been talking about this, the Dave Aranda effect. We'll just go over it. So Dave
Yeah.
Aranda has faced Lincoln Riley 3 years in a row. 2019, he was at LSU, that
Yeah.
historic team.
Bloodbath.
Faced Oklahoma,
Bloodbath. Yeah.
held that Oklahoma offense to 28 points.
Yeah.
Last year, on a pretty bad Baylor team that went 2-6 or something like that, held Oklahoma to 27 points. They lost the game, but they held Oklahoma to 27 points. And then here
Yeah.
today, or Saturday, they hold Oklahoma to 14 points. So Dave Aranda apparently has answers for Lincoln Riley that most people do not have.
Right. Yeah. It would seem so, and like this game maybe kind of snowballed because it was a close game.
Sure,
This
it
game was
was.
extremely competitive until the third quarter, and there was not much scoring really on either side. Like it was 10-7 midway through the third quarter before Baylor finally put another touchdown on the board, and kind of like ran away with it. Then it was 24-7. Then before you knew it, but that was a 10-7 game for a long time, and
Yeah,
I think that like the Aranda stuff I think is big because like that's a name that's a name that's gonna pop up on some of these next coaching jobs. Like he
sure.
made himself a lot of money on Saturday and and deserved it too, by the way, because
Yeah.
like Baylor, like I don't understand how like Matt Rule did it with Baylor, and like turned them around. They had a really good year, went to the Sugar Bowl, and then like he leaves, right? But and then they're awful again, and then Aranda comes in and like quickly turns them around, and like they could still play for like the Big 12 championship still. Like that is
Yeah.
all still in front of them, and yeah, you wouldn't rule it out because like the way like that was extremely impressive. Bohannon, the quarterback, was I think he was good as a thrower, but I mean he was special running the ball. Like he made
Yeah.
key plays running the ball, and I was just really impressed with how they handled it. Like they didn't get out over their skis. They didn't press too much. They felt in control. Baylor felt in control of the football game.
So do you think that he has a legit shot, Dave Aranda, to be the LSU head coach?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh, especially after Saturday. Why not? Like I mean,
Yeah.
he's a guy that like he already has the ties there. Like he's coached there before and was successful there as a D coordinator.
Yes.
Sure, why not? Like I know D coordinators are like a defensive minded head coach isn't flashy anymore. That's probably why he went to Baylor. But like they do work though. Like
Yeah.
I mean, like Kirby Smart's another one of those guys that was hired as he's a defensive minded guy, and no one likes those. But they're like they win football games. They do win football games, and yeah, like the Big 12, which is suddenly like the conference of defense, like it's just crazy. Like the Big 12 plays a ton of defense now, but I think he's for sure like at least in consideration for that
Short
job.
list, probably. Like,
Yes, top five names.
so just let's talk about Oklahoma for a little bit.
Okay,
Is it fair to
They're done, by the way.
say?
They're done? Yeah.
Yeah. Is it fair to say that if they had their offense at its peak this season and their defense at its peak this season at the same time, they would be a legit national title contender? Because it feels like at different times through the year, one side of the ball or the other has carried them, and they've never been able to really put it all together at the same time. Feels like to me.
Yeah, I mean, yes, I would say so. I mean, I could be a little biased. Again, I picked Oklahoma to win the championship this year and to beat
Sure.
Georgia in the championship, and which looked like a good pick, until Saturday, I guess. But like, yeah, no, like the offense was great against Texas, like when Caleb Williams came in, and which turns out that wasn't special because everyone puts up 50 on Texas now,
Right.
so including Kansas. But like yes, like the defense is improved. The defense is improved under Alex Grinch. There's no question. Like the Oklahoma defense is much better. And but yeah, like the offense, even with Caleb Williams, he looked a lot like Spencer Rattler did earlier this year. Like just with
Yeah.
poor reads. A lot of it was poor reads. He made some interceptions. I know one in the first half in particular, which was just there was no place to throw that ball. There was no window there to fit it in, and he just kind of throws it right at the DB, and it just kind of reminded you of Spencer Rattler early in the year, and you're like that's not what we're used to seeing from Lincoln Riley. Like that's not
Yeah.
what we've seen from his quarterbacks. And so, like again, I think the offense hasn't been good enough for him to win a championship. The defense has been, I would say. The offense is for sure what's holding Oklahoma back from winning a title this year.
Yeah. And I want to talk a little more about the Big 12's playoff chances later. So hold that under your hat for a little bit, and then we'll get to it later. But let's keep moving right now. So this is not super notable, but Wisconsin 35, Northwestern 7. Feels like Wisconsin is rounding into form. The main reason I bring that up is because Wisconsin's probably going to win that side of the Big Ten.
Yeah.
And whoever they play in the Big Ten title game is going to have legit playoff hopes. Is there any chance that Wisconsin plays spoiler down the road here?
Oh yeah. Oh no question. Like they're like we made fun of them early on, and probably rightly so. Like it's easy to make fun of Wisconsin, and they get trounced by Notre Dame and they get blown up by Michigan, right? But then like they kind of responded and they've won a lot of big games. They beat up on Iowa. Like remember, like they beat Iowa by 20 points. So like Wisconsin feels like the team from the West, and it does feel like they'll get boat raced probably if they have to play Ohio State, but it is one more quality opponent that the Big Ten champion will have to go through to get to the playoff, because you're probably pretty much going to have to go undefeated from here on out. Anyone's going to have to go undefeated from here on out to get in, because everyone has a loss now, right? So, it's going to be a tough. It's going to be kind of a grind. This is very much a backloaded Big Ten schedule, and Wisconsin's sitting there sneaky, kind of under the radar, and they're sneaky good. So.
Yeah.
They're a good team to keep an eye on for the last 2 weeks.
Sure. Okay, I have two scores here to read to you. Neither one of them is like nationally relevant, but I just want to read these two scores to you. And so both of these games were won by talented teams, top 10 talent, who have had seasons that were kind of derailed. Clemson 44, UConn 7.
Oh, yeah.
Florida 70, Samford 52. Is this just as simple as the difference in culture here? Like, because Clemson has clearly
about it last week.
Clemson has clearly like no, they're still not quite like the Clemson of old, but they've been fighting, and like they're not losing a bunch of games because they let the season just completely derail. Like, they're still fighting. There's still a solid culture there, I think. Florida gave up the most points in a first half that they have ever given up to anybody ever in their history, and it was to Samford, an FCS school.
Yep.
Now, they did
Stanford.
win. Not Stanford, Samford.
Yeah.
Now, they did win. They put up 70 on Samford, but they gave up 52.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I mean, we talked about it. We talked about it 2 weeks ago, or maybe it was last week, maybe in our recap pod. It's just the difference that there is between Florida and Clemson, because those players quit, especially on the defense for Florida. Those players they've quit. To give up 42 points is tough to do to anybody, and to give it up to that team, really, of all the teams you're going to give it up to, it's going to be that one. So,
in a half,
yes, yeah, no, and 42 points in one half, trailed by 2 touchdowns in the first half. And it was like they could really legitimately lose this game. And the sad part, it was on a nobody network, so no one was ever able to watch. But I caught highlights and such. The thing with Clemson, it's good to see Clemson get back in and keep fighting. It does feel like they are who they are at this point. I think we maybe have said that before. They're not anything super special this year.
Yeah.
But they work hard for it, and that's good to see. They have put a floor on what could have been a disastrous year, absolute disastrous year, and you've kept it to just it's a disappointing year. It's not good, but it's not disaster either. They only have 3 losses right now. They could still lose another game or two. We'll see. Well, probably just one more. They might lose to South Carolina. They could lose to South. Well, anyway, But it feels like they're going to fight, and with Florida they've completely given up, and this has to be Mullen's last year. That's unacceptable. You can't do that, and I think the writing is on the wall right now for Dan Mullen at Florida, and I think it's just because of the difference in the program, of what you're seeing. One team feels like they've given up, and it's tough to see.
Yeah. So just for reference's sake, the Sagarin ratings rank all the teams in both FBS and FCS together. So all of Division One, which is like 258 teams. Sorry,
Yeah.
something like that.
Hmm.
Um, I went to them because they're the only ranking I know of that does both levels, and they have Samford at number 167.
Wow.
Samford is the number 167 football team in the country. Eh, there's nothing to say on this one other than what you said. Like Florida has quit. Like
They've stopped playing ball. Yeah.
clearly they have quit. And like you
Yep.
said, Clemson has definitely not had a Clemson-like season, but they're at least bowl eligible. Like they put up 44, and it's UConn. Like yeah, you're supposed to destroy UConn. Um, but I think if we're earlier this year, we've talked some about like is the Clemson thing over? Like is this going to spiral? It might still be like as far as just a top three team, but I feel a lot better
Yeah.
about them rebounding now. I think than I did a month ago.
Sure. I think, and this is something that we can probably talk about in the offseason. We could do a full episode just on Clemson football and like where you think they could go because like it is interesting because like they're not just more talented than people anymore. Like there's clearly been a loss of talent there over the years because that team plays its tail off. Like they really do. And you can argue scheme, you can argue coaching, and you'd have a point. But like Clemson in years past has been simply able to out athlete people. Whereas right now, in kind of a not great ACC, they're not able to. But like to their point, they're not Florida. Like they absolutely fight. They get after it. And
Mm.
like, yeah, I don't know. Maybe that's just something we can probably even talk about it later. But I think next year for Clemson is going to be like do or die. Like next year for Clemson is really you. I don't think you can have back to back disappointing years with 3 or 4 losses in the ACC and continue to think of yourself as that top program. So for me, it's going to be next year is what you'll look at. Whereas like Florida, they're not going to get it next year. Like that whole staff's probably going to be gone. And if the AD refuses to fire him, the AD will probably be gone too because
Yeah.
it is unraveling there in a hurry.
So if you look at recruiting rankings, which excuse me, which I actually really like, Clemson has the number
Yep.
4 ranked team in 24/7 Sports as talent composite for this season.
Yes.
So it's
Yep.
still a very talented roster. But here's what I think the difference is the last 5-6 years it feels like Clemson has hit on all of their 5 and 4 star players. Like they've hit on all of them, and it's been
Yep.
like an unsustainable level of just like we're not going to have any misses basically. Like of course, yeah, you
Yeah.
Clemson fans
Right.
listening, you can always point out the one or two, of course, like any fan could of their team.
Yeah.
But like it's not the
Sure.
same percentage as everyone else that it feels like because for this last 5 year stretch where they have competed with everyone, they've been basically Alabama on the field. They have not been nearly as talented as Alabama, like just as far as recruiting rankings go. But they have had such a great hit rate. It's kind of leveled the playing field
Yeah.
with Alabama.
That's right.
Now it
That's
feels
right.
like their hit rate is a little more normal. And so while they still have a very
Yeah.
talented roster based on recruiting rankings, like they don't have quite the hit rate and therefore there's a few holes. Is that fair?
Absolutely. That's absolutely fair. Like it was uncanny for a while just how many players they were like every single 5 star ended up producing for him. You know, like
Yeah.
there was no off the field like there was very little drama. Like it just like our 5 stars come and they play very well. And you're right. Like it does feel like it's been a little bit more normal, I think is the word. But like yeah, I don't know. Like I'm still conflicted on Clemson. Like I'm not really ready just to declare that everything's okay there. Like I would like to see next year before I just decide, like it's gonna be all right. Because like DJ, like people are kind of maybe acting like DJ Youngale is like the reason why they're not good this year. And like I would point you back to last year where he played against Notre Dame on the road against a playoff team. Notre Dame was a playoff team. Let's not forget that. And absolutely balled. Like he played
Yeah.
really, really well. And he's a 5 star guy. Like he clearly has the arm talent. And like why is there a regression there? Like are we gonna blame that all on coaching? Like is that yeah, like or is that maybe some of the receivers leaving? Like, like Etienne's gone and like he was a safety valve for for Clemson quarterbacks for a while. Like Yeah, I don't know. I just probably want to see another year yet before I'm really ready to make a definitive statement on them. But like, they're going to be a team to watch though. Like next year, like
Yeah.
Clemson's going to be very intriguing to watch just to see how it plays out.
Yeah. All right. I guess it bears mentioning number 2 Alabama, 59 New Mexico State 3.
Yeah.
Not anything to learn from that really, unless you have any thoughts.
No, none.
Okay. Michigan 21, Penn State 17. This was Michigan led most of the way, but Penn State took a fourth quarter lead. Felt like they might actually win this game. Michigan put together a drive and won this one. This was actually sneaky big for Michigan's playoff chances. Obviously, they still have to beat Ohio State. Yeah, they have to win out. But this was a pretty big hurdle for them. And I say that knowing that Penn State now has like 4 losses and should not be considered a major quality win. But it's still a pretty talented team that Michigan, credit to them, they figured out a way.
Yes, figure out a way is the correct I think the correct way to look at it. Like this was one that you just it's a win, it's a game that you had to have to make the Ohio State game matter more. Yeah. And you did. You did. You took care of business. It wasn't maybe pretty, but Penn State's good and Penn State has athletes. And I think you just accept that win. Like if you're Michigan, I know it's what they won by 4 and you're number 6 team and this is Penn State's 4th loss. Like so it feels like yeah, we should have won by more. Like I don't really care. You really needed this like a big win against a good team. And yeah, you're going to make that Ohio State game matter even just a little bit more.
The Michigan thing is like they don't really need style points at this point. Like they just need to win out.
They don't. That's right.
And I guess there is a scenario where Michigan State wins out, including over Ohio State, and Michigan wins out and still doesn't make the conference title game. In which case they would be an 11-1 team without a conference title, and then that would be the one scenario where style points matter. But that's such a fringe possibility that both Michigan schools beat Ohio State. Like I'm not.
Yeah, I know.
Realistically speaking, they just need to win out, and if they lose again, then it's over. So the style points don't really matter, realistically speaking.
That's right. If Michigan wins out, they're in the playoff. Like we can just go ahead and say that because Michigan wins out, they're going to have some really impressive wins. They're getting in, no question.
The only way they don't maybe is if Michigan State beats Ohio State this coming week, but we'll see.
I still think they'd get in. Like
they might. At that point, they'd have a super impressive win with that Ohio State win.
It'd be huge. Is that at Michigan or is that at Ohio State? Let me look here real quick. That's at Michigan, so it's at the Big House. Wow. I think Michigan, like sneaky. I know it's sneaky. Like Michigan has a chance. Michigan has a puncher's chance at that game. And then like Ohio State has to go play Michigan State and then like just like roll from one right to the next, Yeah. Like yeah, I'd be licking my lips for that one.
Okay. I'll mention this one just because of the future ramifications. Utah beats Arizona 38-29. Clear look ahead spot for Utah. They're playing Oregon next. We'll most likely play Oregon twice in the Pac-12 championship game. Oregon needs to win out. That's the Pac-12's only chance, really, at the playoff. And Utah is a good team. They somehow they have losses to both BYU and San Diego State, who are both good teams too.
Yeah,
but yeah, like
good. Yeah,
yeah. So Utah, clear look ahead spot for them. Curious to see what happens if they can actually beat Oregon. I'll definitely be keeping an eye on that one as a Notre Dame fan who needs a lot of help getting playoff. But anyway.
Yeah.
Okay. Ohio State 59, Purdue 31.
Yes.
This was one that was like upset watch for everybody. And Ohio State, their offense just kind of said, no. We're going to go ahead and lead 35-7, score 59 points on this Purdue team. Ohio State appears to be clicking once again. Is it fair to say this is like their so they had a stretch earlier this year where we thought their offense was really turning it on.
Yeah.
But none of those teams were really any good. Is this the first time they have really just slaughtered a team that's actually pretty decent?
Yes, for sure. This was
Yeah.
like they had the big win of what against Indiana, I think, where we're like, this team's really good, and then it's like it's
Yeah.
Indiana. Whereas Purdue doesn't have a great defense though. Like I
No,
will
they don't.
say, like
You're right.
Purdue's defense is leaky, and the Ohio State defense isn't great. Like they still gave up a lot of yards and points to Aiden O'Connell. Like he threw for
Yeah.
four touchdowns rather, and almost 400 yards. So yeah, I'm like, yeah, I don't know. It is Purdue. At the end of the day, like I know they were 6-3 at the time, now 6-4, and they were number 19 in the nation, had impressive wins. It's Purdue. It's still Purdue.
Yeah.
Like if you do that anywhere even relatively close against Michigan and Michigan State to end the year, as like then yes, like I'll give you all the accolades. Like it's Purdue. Like let's hold off just a little bit.
I think I would be a little harder on their defense if this had been a closer game, but it was 35-7. I don't know. It's just hard for me to think that all those yards and even the 31 points, I don't know that they mean a whole lot. They do mean that Ohio State's defense is not like insane. Like we know this. Like we've known this for what, 2 years now. Ohio State's defense, like I still think they have a pretty high ceiling because of the talent, but they're not insane. Like if they win a national title or go to the playoff or anything like that, it's going to be based on their offense, and their defense just has to be okay. Like basically, and
Yep.
yeah,
Yes, correct. As a Georgia fan, don't really want to play them in the playoff. Not really.
right. That's like, to me, like Georgia's clearly better than Ohio State, but Ohio State is the type of team that could give Georgia trouble just because they can score.
Right, for sure. No question.
Okay. Florida State 31, Miami 28. Not a hugely relevant game, but an exciting game. I don't know if you saw how this ended. I was not aware that there had to be 3 seconds left on the clock for you to spike the ball. Apparently that's a rule. Miami spiked it with 2 seconds left, which meant game over. But hey, speaking of teams that have kept fighting, Florida State is still fighting. They're still playing hard. Like this is not the Florida State that we're used to, like being a top 5 talented team. Like they're not that anymore. The recruiting has slipped. I don't even believe they're a blue chip team anymore. They might be close. I'm not sure, but like hey, credit to that staff. Like so that their second year there, things aren't going amazingly well, but they're recruiting super well, and their players are fighting, and that's half the battle right there.
It is.
Those two things are big.
The recruiting is a huge issue. I mean, that's been a massive thing for Florida State, and this win over Miami, like especially with Florida being down, if Florida State can beat Florida, like and be the king of Florida, like imagine the recruiting that you can do then. Because there's a clear vacuum, like just a recruiting vacuum for the Florida teams right now in that state, which is a huge state. Like as far as recruiting goes, the state of Florida is massive, like all kinds of players everywhere, and yeah, for Florida State to beat Miami for one, and then if you can go ahead and knock off Florida too, which like Florida State's fighting and Florida players like don't care anymore. So
yeah,
that's doable. Like that is a doable thing for them. So I'm just saying, like that game. Hey, that game could be between 2, 5, and 6 teams fighting for bowl eligibility.
For bowl eligibility, it really
Isn't
could.
That neat? That's crazy. That is. It could be that. It might not. We'll see.
Yeah.
But yeah, huge win for Florida State and a lot of credit. That thing feels like it's on the right track now. In Tallahassee.
I want to say, I'm not saying the recruiting has been lights out or anything.
It's been good though. It's been an improvement.
It's at least, and they're in the mix for a lot of guys. Like even if they don't end up ultimately getting some of these really good players, like they're at least in the mix with a lot of talent. And recruiting largely is a numbers game. Like get yourself in the conversation with a huge number of players, and you'll get some good players. Like
agreed.
Notre Dame is discovering that with Marcus Freeman. Like it was just a year or two ago where one of their coaches said that they can recruit like 40 of the top 100 players in the country. Since Marcus Freeman has gotten there, they've offered like over 60 of the top 100 players in the country. And guess what? Their recruiting classes look a lot better. Like just get your foot in the door with a greater number of good players, and you're going to get more good players. It's simple math.
Who would have thought?
Yes.
Who would have thought?
Somehow I turned that into Notre Dame talk. Wow.
Well done. Well done.
Okay. So the Matt Campbell pod, we can't call ourselves a Matt Campbell pod anymore. We just can't do it. Texas Tech 41, Iowa State 38. Texas Tech. 62-yard field goal.
62-yard field goal. It's not his fault. It's not his fault. Can't
It's
blame
not
the
his
guy.
fault that they lost to a team who fired their coach.
Well,
I mean, yeah.
yeah, that's a tough look. You hate to see that.
And
they
it's
were
still-
down. They were down a lot in this game and actually could have gotten beat by a bunch and had like a big comeback. They were down. Well, they were down 17 at halftime. Yeah, I don't have a whole lot for you there. That's you hate to see that.
I don't quite know what to think about Matt Campbell, because it's the two things where, yeah, there's some disappointing results, and then also it's Iowa State. Like, so you have to balance that out somehow. Like, I think he's probably still a really good coach, but I'm less convinced of it now than I was before this season.
Yeah. I don't know. We'll see.
Yes.
I think his record is incredible for, like, given where he's at. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's Iowa State.
Sure.
And his record, like, he's gonna have by far the best record of any Iowa State the best winning percentage, right? And yes, he probably needs to stay there though.
It's feeling more likely that he becomes that lifetime Iowa State guy than takes some massive job.
He's gonna be like Kirk Ferentz, just like for Iowa State. Yeah,
could
be
happen.
there for forever. Yeah.
Okay, Georgia 41, Tennessee 17.
Yes.
Georgia gives up the most points they have all season.
Yes, they did.
And we're actually,
garbage time. Garbage
yes,
time.
they were actually trailing for a little bit, and then they kind of shut the door on that. Yeah, what are your thoughts here? Were you happy with the way Georgia played?
Am I ever?
Right.
No. These are tough questions. Am I happy with how they played? Yes. In the end, you have to be happy because late in the fourth quarter, you're up 41-10 against a really good offense, and you put up 41 points with Stetson Bennett in there, and like you kept answering the bell. You did, and you had you took advantage of mismatches. You really did. I think the play calling, Georgia's offensive play calling has been much improved over years past. I think it's very creative, and they scheme guys open. We saw that a lot with James Cook, Dalvin's little brother, James Cook. He was all over the place. Yes, and he was playing very well, and like that was a lot of scheme involved there. The running from the quarterback was okay, maybe whatever. The defense got out of there. They looked like, I don't know if you watched it. It looked like they had a ton of injuries, and they did have some guys nicked up, but everyone seemed to be okay. Nothing season ending, hopefully. So in the end, yes, you're happy. You're maybe a little bit miffed you gave up that garbage time touchdown. I will say this: teams fight like crazy to get a last minute touchdown against Georgia. They go kicking and screaming trying to get that last minute touchdown against Georgia. So. Yeah, it's all about the moral victories, I guess. I guess, but in the end, happy with it because this pretty much ensures that you're going to go to the playoff either way. Because you're not going to lose to Georgia Tech and you're not going to lose to Charleston Southern next week. So even if you do lose possibly an SEC championship game to Bama, you're still in. It pretty much locked up a playoff bid, and that's really cool. That's impressive.
Sure.
Yeah, it's impressive. It was just an impressive win.
There's only 5 teams, I believe, that have made the playoff multiple times. Georgia's about to become the 6th. Yeah. So
who are the 5?
It's Bama, Clemson, Ohio State, Oklahoma, and Notre Dame.
Oklahoma. Oh, Notre Dame. Yeah. Okay. Notre Dame did make it. What? Twice?
18 and 20. Yep.
Yeah. Gotcha.
So, obviously, we can put it to bed now. This is a coach's decision. This is not an injury thing. Stetson Bennett is the guy for Georgia. Clearly, they're going to play him until they can't, basically. Is it just because the running element, you think? Is that?
Well, I don't know. Who knows? It doesn't really make sense. I mean, they say it's the running element. In the end, I don't have a great answer for you because when JT went out, he's a 75% passer. 75% and throws a really pretty deep ball and doesn't make some of the bad decisions that Stetson Bennett makes.
Yeah.
So No, I don't. Georgia must be committing to the game flow, like the style that they want to be, which is a lot of zone runs where the quarterback can keep. Like they must really feel like they have an advantage there. And I did hear part of it. Georgia's interior offensive line is not terrific against a really good pass rush. It's not terrific. It's okay. And maybe they want someone more mobile who is more capable of getting outside the pocket and making plays, which Bennett does, and JT doesn't have as much of that. That's about the only real good explanation that I've heard, is that you don't really trust your interior offensive line and you want to get out on the edges more in pass pro. Like, you don't trust them in pass pro really, because they do run the ball up the middle and do it pretty well. But yeah, maybe in pass pro they're not quite as quick. So yeah, I mean, I guess that's the only logical reason that I've heard, but it doesn't make sense to me. I've been upset about this all year. It feels dumb. It feels dumb. And so, yeah, I did hear on the broadcast, there are announcers that just make total fools of themselves when talking about Stetson and JT. And they're like, yeah, oh, well, I really don't feel like you can pull Stetson Bennett. You know, it's hard to pull the guy that wins. Well, I was like, well, you had JT Daniels, who is 7-0 as the starter at Georgia. So, like, please spare me with that talk. So, yeah, let's put in the guy that has lost a few games over the guy that has never lost at Georgia. But whatever. Anyway, we can, if it works, it works. And if we don't win, we'll rag on Kirby Smart forever. So
I'm starting to come around to the idea that Georgia will win the national title with Stetson Bennett as their quarterback.
It looks more likely. It does look more likely. Like, each week you're like, because he does make he makes like 2 or 3 throws a game where it's like, well, he's not bad. He's
not bad. He's a decent quarterback.
Right. Like, he makes, it's not bad. And then he has about 3 throws per game. And there was one on a deep ball to the tight end Brock Bowers, who's a freak, by the way, just an absolute freak. And it was a touchdown. It was a shot play. He was the primary read. And he led him out of bounds, and it ended up being incomplete. And had JT been in the game, that's a touchdown. That's 6 points.
Yeah.
And that does happen. That does happen. That's what you're missing with it. It's the consistency on the deep ball, because Stetson can push the ball a little bit down the field. Not terrific, but yeah, it's the consistency in the pass game for me is what what needs to be improved. And I actually sadly could see Georgia winning a championship with all 5'8" of Stetson Bennett running his tail around in the backfield. That could be a thing that happens.
There is no part of you that will be sad.
No. It's a win. I still wouldn't say that I'm wrong.
But you would feel more comfortable if they were playing JT Daniels about Georgia's chances.
If we play Ohio State with Stetson Bennett, I am going to be terrified. Like, imagine you're going to go up against a team that could put up 2 or 3 touchdowns in the first quarter. Suddenly, what if you have a bad snap and a fumble? Suddenly, like, you're feeling like we need to put up 30 or 40 points just to stay in this game. And who are you trusting in that? Not saying that it will, but I'm saying maybe it's not even the defense's issue. Like, maybe they're going to have it block punt, or something, like the ball gets tipped up in the air and you're going to run back for a pick 6. Suddenly you're going to need like some big plays from the offense. And who do you trust? I trust JT. I don't trust Stetson yet. I don't trust him.
Yeah. I will say, like, on the historical talk, like, if I'm comparing Georgia to 2020 Alabama, 2019 LSU, even like 2018 Clemson, like, I think I pick against Georgia in all 3 of those matchups. But I might take them against anybody this year. Like, I think I would. So, and that's all you have to do. You just have to be the best in your year.
We had, so 2019 LSU was the greatest college football team that ever played,
Ridiculous.
in my opinion. Like they were absolutely silly. And like 2020 Alabama was almost as good. Like, they were just slightly worse, you know? And so, like, those were, historical teams. Like, yeah, the LSU team, probably the greatest of all time, at least in my opinion. I've watched them play live. It was just silly. Like, it was just silly how good they were and how good those players have been in the pros too. Like, those receivers have been ridiculous. So, yeah, like, it's not fair maybe to compare them to that. But so far this year, there is no one else that is right now on that level of that has no flaws. Like, Georgia doesn't really show flaws. and any flaws that they may have, they cover up very well, and you can't find them. They're very difficult to find.
Right.
Tennessee thought they had something cooking there in the first quarter on offense, and Georgia made a few adjustments, and like Tennessee went 53 minutes in between touchdowns. 53 game minutes in between touchdowns. And like you can't do that and win football games. You can't do that against good teams and win football games. So Tennessee has a legitimate offense, or had a legitimate offense, and Georgia did a really good job in stopping that, and that should be applauded as like for what it was. That was an incredible defensive display.
Yeah. It's almost unfair to compare Georgia to some of these recent like teams that were just powerhouses on offense, especially. They're more like 2012 Alabama, where they're clearly the best team in the country. They have all of their defensive players are going to be NFL players, and they have AJ McCarron at quarterback, Stetson Bennett, very good, solid college quarterback, but also not like Heisman level, So
Sure.
All right,
Sure.
Iowa 27, Minnesota 22. Not super important, but basically is just Big Ten West positioning. Although Wisconsin, I think, is going to pretty clearly win that division. Any thoughts there?
Yes. No, I would agree with you.
Yeah.
I would agree with you there. I did pick Iowa in the preseason poll to win the Big Ten West.
Yeah.
And felt really good about it. And now with that loss, especially the loss to Wisconsin, that does not look like it's going to happen.
Right. Okay, Michigan State 40, Maryland 21. Michigan State, I don't know if you would call it a look-ahead spot, but Maryland is not terrible, and they handled them pretty well. Michigan State, they're kind of the same boat as Michigan. Win out, and you're in. Lose, and you're out. That's
right.
And Michigan State actually controls their own destiny, unlike Michigan, because they do have that head-to-head win. Yep. Do you think we'll get into this more later in our next episode about Michigan State and hanging with Ohio State this coming week? So I guess I won't ask you if you think they can hang. We'll save that for the next episode.
Yeah.
Are you impressed at all with?
That's what they call a tease.
That's a bit of a tease. Are you impressed at all with this win?
Yeah, there you go.
Over Maryland. Do you think Kenneth Walker, you expect him to be a Heisman finalist or not?
He should be. He's for sure. For me, he's the best running back in college football. For me,
sure.
And I've been banging that drum, since week 2. I'm a big Kenneth Walker guy. But
yeah.
No, I think it was more a thing. They took care of business. Kind of the same as Michigan State. Just keep winning. Yeah.
Yeah. So, just real quick, let's look at these Heisman odds for a second. Obviously, it depends where you look. Bryce Young is still 1. CJ Stroud is 2. Kenneth Walker is 3. 4 is Matt Corral. 5 is Kenny Pickett. Is it a weird year for there to be 4 quarterbacks in the top 5? It feels like maybe we should be talking about some other guys. Just because it hasn't been an incredible year for quarterbacks. It really hasn't.
Who else would you put in, though?
So I got some names for you. Kenneth Walker's definitely one of them. He's, in my mind, he's up there. But we're talking about the best player in college football. Why not Jordan Davis? Why not mix it up this year? Last year we had a receiver for the first time in 30 years. Why not have a defensive player this year?
Sure. He doesn't have the stats. Simply put, he doesn't have good enough stats.
You're right.
Yeah. But as far as controlling a game, controlling the game, he completely dominates up front and is a massive presence. So
sure.
As far as game changing, sure. But he doesn't have a moment, you need that big moment on national TV where you he needs to get in the end zone, as a defensive player, you need to get in the end zone or something. So, he doesn't have one. So, probably not.
I got 2 more names to throw at you later. That's another tease when we talk about a different game.
Nice.
We'll keep going here. So I don't have a lot of thoughts on this. Didn't watch any of it, but the South Carolina team that just destroyed Florida a week ago lost to Missouri, which just more Florida fodder for getting rid of Dan Mullen there.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. Ole Miss, Texas A&M. This was one of the top games of the week. Ole Miss wins this one 29-19. A&M, the under 9.5 wins for the season has now officially hit. So yeah, are you surprised at all? Like this, are you surprised that Texas A&M is where they are this year, or are you maybe surprised how it got there, or is it just like, hey, if you'd have told me at the beginning of the year they'd beat Alabama and also still lose 3 games, like what are your thoughts here on this team?
I'm conflicted about A&M. Like, I'm not sure. They kind of fit almost in the Auburn Mississippi State vein of just like I have no idea what to expect from them because we've seen their good be really really good, and then
Yeah.
like Ole Miss is good, by the way. Let's not act like they lost to a bad
This
team.
is
Like,
true.
Like Ole Miss played their defense. Ole Miss's defense, especially in the first half, played very well, and that game could have been a blowout. Probably should have been a blowout because like they had so many. I forget how many times they could have kicked field goals down inside like the 10 or 20 yard line, and they were trying to go for on fourth down. Because Lane is Lane. And tries to be cool, but yeah, and it kept the game close because Ole Miss had a 300-yard advantage at halftime in total yardage.
Wow.
Ole Miss led by 300 at half. So, and like you just think about that for a minute, like that's crazy, and you should have been ahead by more than 15-0. But hey, you won by 10, and impressive for Ole Miss. Like
Right.
that's a really big win, signature win, and they're gonna they could finish top 10 still. They could still finish top 10.
Absolutely. I mean, all of a sudden that Egg Bowl, we mentioned it already, but Ole Miss, Mississippi State, that's going to be a big game. And Ole Miss has a chance to make the Sugar Bowl, I think. Like they could have a real, like Ole Miss making a New Year's Six Bowl. I mean, if you'd have told me that 2 years ago, like, yeah, like this is impressive for sure.
Yep.
Okay, another game. I didn't watch any of this. I mention it because of what happened off the field. Arizona State 35, Washington 30. And Jimmy Lake has now been fired by Washington. Are you surprised at all that it happened already? Like, it's just, I mean, we're less than 2 years into his tenure. But also, Washington's been bad.
I think it's good to see the smart guys get fired sometimes. And sometimes it's fun to just remember like the instant karma for him. Like, remember, like this was like what, 2 or 3 weeks ago, like we don't recruit against Oregon, like we're too smart for them. And and now you're gone. So I kind of enjoyed it, not gonna lie. I hate to see that happen, but at the same time, not too bad either.
Sure. He'll land on his feet. He's gonna get a DC job somewhere. He'll be fine. Okay. I laugh because I just saw the score I'm about to read. Kansas 57, Texas 56. Oh man, it's been bad. It's been quite the downhill turn for Texas. It's year one for Steve Sarkisian. I'm not going to make any grand sweeping generalizations or anything like, but this has been less than ideal for them.
You think? Do you think? Yes. Less than ideal would be a word. You gave up 57 points to Kansas. So
yes.
Another team that seems like they've quit. Texas seems to not be playing much football down there right now. And hey, to be fair, like part of that, like I'm not going to blame that all on Sark either. Like I think I give them a couple of years yet. Like Sark, I think is the guy still at Texas. Like I don't think that I think they could very easily still work this thing out and don't think that they're just total failures yet. So, yeah. Give him some time.
I do think this is maybe the type of roster where there's some, maybe some different personalities and stuff that they need to get rid of. And like, it's going to take a year or two to get the roster to where they're playing for Texas, not playing for themselves, that type of thing.
Oh, agreed.
So, yeah. Now, honestly, the biggest thing here is just, hey, good for Kansas, right? Lance Leipold.
Yeah.
I think I'm not positive, but I think, am I right in thinking that their over under for the season was 1.5 and we both took the over?
Did we?
I'm going to check it real quick. But
that'd be nice. Yeah.
I feel like we just hit on that. Okay, so Big 12, 1.5. Yes, we both took the over.
Nice.
So this game clinched a win for both of us on that one. So
that was big. That was big for the program.
Hey, good for Kansas, man.
That's right. Good to see.
Right. Okay, so earlier we talked about one of my locks. So we both went 1-1 to locks this week.
Yeah.
I had I had a pretty bad miss with. I picked Oklahoma to cover 5.5 against Baylor. They lost outright by like 2 scores.
They did. Yep.
You, on the other hand, had a bad beat a little bit. So Wake Forest
Yeah, it was
45, NC State 42. You had NC State covering +2. They lose by 3.
Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But at least you were. I mean, it's not like you had an atrocious pick, unlike me.
Yeah.
Are you impressed?
Yeah.
Are you more impressed by Wake Forest or kind of disappointed in Zone Blitz darling NC State?
I still like our zone blitz darling. Like
Yeah.
I like them and Boston College. Like I still think that they've had successful years. Like it's been a successful year at NC State.
Yeah.
Like you're 7-3 and you beat Clemson. Like that's a successful year. Wake Forest is better than I thought they were. Like they're legitimately better than I thought they were. And like I think that just shows. Like that's incredible. Like that's really good for them. This is going to be probably the high watermark of Wake Forest football, maybe ever. Like it probably won't get better than this for them. You know what I mean? So like hey, y'all better than anyone thought you could be. And Sam Hartman is a name that should get maybe a little bit of more Heisman buzz than he gets, because that guy is a ball player. He is a good ball player. Possible Sunday guy. So I think that's like a sneaky name. To
Devin Leary is too, probably, like
he is
Sunday
as well.
guy.
Yeah. They both had really good games. It was a good quarterback matchup. Both quarterbacks, they did make some mistakes. I think there was a number of interceptions, but yeah, like both guys played really well and make plays. So it was a good game to watch. Sadly, that came out.
You can totally see Sam Hartman and Devin Leary facing off 3 years from now, when the 5-5 Giants play the 5-5 Panthers. Like,
yeah.
I don't think either one is probably destined for greatness or anything, but hey, legit quarterbacks. Like
that's right. That's right.
Okay, so I teased 2 Heisman contenders. Props to you for throwing that one out there. Now these are sleepers here. I wouldn't actually vote for either one of these like top of the ballot or anything.
Mm-hmm.
Notre Dame 28, Virginia 3. The one name I'm going to throw out is from Notre Dame, Kyron Williams, who is untackleable. Like at one point in this game, 67 of his 70 yards came after contact at one point. Like he just makes guys miss on a weekly basis. The other guy did not play in this game. Brennan Armstrong, Virginia's quarterback. He has had Virginia like putting up points this year. And clearly he is extremely important to their team, because this Virginia team, they were so bad without him. So bad.
Oh,
and
it wasn't great.
Give some credit to Notre Dame's defense. They played very well. They had 8 sacks. But man, like it was rough. Like Virginia's offense without Brennan Armstrong, it was a rough watch.
Struggle bus. I would say, with like to your Kyron Williams point, then why is he only getting 14 carries? Like why not feed him? You know what I mean? Like why not?
Part of it is just because the offensive line's relative strength is pass blocking. Yeah. And like I mentioned, 67 out of 70 yards at one point were after contact. Like they're just not a very good run blocking team. Also, Chris Tyree has to get some carries and some touches. True. And the true freshman, Logan Diggs, I don't know if you saw his run that he had. I did not. Highlight worthy. Stiff-armed a dude in the backfield, went down the field, hurdled a man, kept running. True freshman, probably is going to be the future. This is a guy who was a late prospect. LSU, he's from Louisiana. LSU offered really late. At that point, Notre Dame had already been on him for a while. He went with Notre Dame. 3-star recruit. And Chris Tyree was the 5-star who chose Notre Dame over Oklahoma and Alabama. And he hasn't been bad. He's very fast. Like he's got to be your second guy. I think next year, the former 5-star will still be the second teamer, and the former 3-star Logan Diggs, who's a true freshman. Like I think he's going to be the running back of the future. Look up his run; you won't regret it. It was ridiculous. Okay. So that's part of the reason why Kyron only gets 14 carries.
Gotcha. Notre Dame, by the way, finishes out with home game Georgia Tech, and then they go out to California and play Stanford. Yeah, not Samford, Stanford. Yeah. So they should you're going to cruise in both of those games probably. Both of those teams are 3-7. You'll probably cruise to be 11-1. And by the way, that's a successful year. Like we both took the over on Notre Dame. That's a good year. It really is. You came off a year where you lost a ton of production. You're probably going to go 11-1. And unless some crazy stuff happens, like, because you're not going to lose any games, there's a possibility that some teams fall below you and you sneak into that 4 spot. Probably not. But if you even if you don't, successful year, and like you have to be really impressed with how they did, just given the quarterback turmoil, and like you've missed Kyle Hamilton for a while now, and you keep winning and you beat good teams. So that's impressive.
I've been very impressed with like some of the depth. In August, they lost to Maris Liufau, who was supposed to be their best linebacker this season. They also lost Shane Simon, who was a returning starter at linebacker, who actually lost his job to Maris Liufau. And then with both of them out, it's been J.D. Bertrand, the former Georgia commit, who kind of got pushed out of their class.
We do that from time to time.
Yeah,
it's kind of fun.
And he's really more of a natural Mike, but he's been playing the will just because because he has to. Somebody has to. In this game, Myron Tagovailoa Amosa, starting defensive end, and Drew White, starting middle linebacker, were both out with the flu. So, and you mentioned Kyle Hamilton. It sounds like he's pretty definitively out until the postseason. At this point, with some of the remarks Brian Kelly made today in his press conference, especially with Georgia Tech and Stanford being the last 2 opponents, you definitely don't need Kyle Hamilton to beat those 2 teams. I do think that just because he is that top 5 draft pick, like I would be a little surprised if he played in like a New Year's Six bowl. But I do think he'll be back if they make the playoff. Just because at that point you're playing for actual stakes.
Right. Sure. Yeah.
I was left a little bit wanting on offense. Like Notre Dame, they played pretty well, but left a lot of points out there. And they definitely called off the Dogs. I mean, it was 21-0 at halftime. They could have pushed for another score before halftime. They just ran the ball like 4 times and went into halftime. It was very clear from the opening possession for Virginia that 10 points was probably going to be enough in this game. It was just that type of game. There's not a whole lot to learn from this game other than Brendan Armstrong is like a freaking beast.
Sure. Yeah. Yes, he was.
Yes.
Rest in peace. He's not dead. He's not dead.
He's not actually dead.
Yeah.
No.
Just his Heisman candidate is gone.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Okay. A rivalry game. Arkansas beats LSU 16-13. Their first win in the series since like 2015.
Yes. Yes, they did.
Not major like implications nationally, but hey, good for Arkansas. Like it matters.
Oh yeah.
This is Arkansas. Like this is a really good year for Arkansas. You talked about Notre Dame going 11-1 will be a successful season. Arkansas has already clinched a successful season before this past weekend, and this just, I mean, it's in stone now.
Yes. Yeah. Agreed. Like 100%. I think you beat Texas, you beat Texas A&M, and you lost on a 2-point conversion play at the end of the game to possibly beat Ole Miss at Ole Miss. Like, but then not phased. Like you come back, you beat Mississippi State, who's good. Like Mississippi State's a good football team. You beat Mississippi State, and then you beat LSU. Like that's, I mean, yeah. What can you say? Hugely successful win for Arkansas. And like they have now established themselves as a force in the West. Now they do have to play. They go to Alabama this weekend. They'll probably get absolutely dump trucked, and it's like that's so what? Like so what? You know, like you're just happy to be ranked again, and it's a ranked matchup. And like who would have ever thought that 2 years ago? It's a ranked on ranked matchup, and you get to finish out with a winnable game at home to Missouri. It's a chance to finish 8-4. 8-4 with some really impressive wins on the resume there. So yeah. Hey, hats off to that squad.
Their over-under before the season was 5.5 wins.
Went way over. Yeah.
Went way over. Absolute great year by them. No one's saying they're like a title contender or anything like that, but they're a tier 3 team, and that's like that's a big deal, like compared to what they were. Yes. So props to them. I feel dumb for taking the under on their season total.
Did I go over? Surely I went over.
You went over. I thought they were going to be better than a 6-win team.
Yeah.
But I just figured the schedule was so difficult that they wouldn't hit the over.
They had a brutal schedule. They had
brutal schedule, and they're going to go 8-4. So
didn't matter. Did not matter.
Props to Arkansas.
They played Georgia and Alabama. And imagine playing both of those teams, and like they got trounced by Georgia. They'll probably get trounced again. But you play both of those teams, and then you go 8-2 from there on out. And the SEC West, which is loaded. So hey, that's hugely impressive.
Yes, hats off to them. Okay. Now, I referred to this game a little bit earlier when we were talking about Oklahoma. I said I wanted to talk about the Big 12's chances for the playoff.
Mm.
Oklahoma State 63, TCU 17.
Mhm.
Oklahoma State is like starting to figure it out. Like they're starting to kind of click on all cylinders here.
Yeah.
Obviously they got Bedlam coming up, and here's the
Yeah.
thing: like they never beat Oklahoma. Like there's
No, they don't.
I heard somebody say one time, when it comes to this rivalry, like anything can happen. Oklahoma can win by a lot, they can win by a little bit, but that's about it. But maybe hey, like this year, the way Oklahoma State's playing, man, like
Yeah.
I think they might even be favored in that game.
Ooh. Maybe.
We'll
I don't know
see,
if I'm going
but
to go that far. I will say we are a Matt Campbell pod, and that was their lone loss. Oklahoma State's lone loss is to Iowa State. So
true.
hey, maybe Campbell is not as bad of a coach as we think.
He's not bad.
No. I'll carry the water for him. Like we are a Matt Campbell
right.
pod at this point,
All
so let's just be in on that. Let's be in on that. Oklahoma State massively impressive. I don't believe them even a little bit until they beat Oklahoma. They may even have to beat Oklahoma twice. We'll see how that plays out. Just don't believe that don't believe them yet. I don't.
So because they do have some backloaded scheduling there, both like obviously the Oklahoma schools playing each other, and possibly twice.
Possibly. Yeah.
Do you think the Big 12 champ has a chance yet, like to make the playoff?
No.
No.
No, I don't think so. I think there's too much. There's too many teams that are ahead of them. Like for right now, like I would say Notre Dame would still get in ahead of Oklahoma State if they both finish the year with one loss. Like I would still give Notre Dame a slight lean just because your loss is better. Like I understand maybe Oklahoma State has better wins, but like your loss was better than the Iowa State loss. Like you lost to Cincinnati, who would probably be in. Notre Dame's going to struggle to be in unless Cincinnati is also in. At least that's my stance. So and for me that's probably where you draw the line. For me, I think they're probably both out, and we're probably looking at probably two SEC teams. Like probably, I don't know. We can get into this maybe a little bit. Like does 2-loss Alabama? Say Alabama loses to Georgia in a close game, fairly contested game, because I just don't see Georgia blowing out Alabama. So like say they lose in a close one, and you have 2-loss Alabama there. Ohio State's in, right? Yeah. And it's 2-loss Alabama and then Cincinnati for that last spot there, because Georgia and Ohio State are in, right? And then say you throw in
Oregon would have to win out.
Oregon would have to be in still, yeah.
Or to come down to those two. So, well, here's my question: so you kind of touched on it. How would you order, or how do you? I guess you could answer it a couple ways. How would you do it, or how do you think the committee will do it? Undefeated Cincinnati. 2-loss Alabama, we'll say with a 1 touchdown loss to Georgia.
Okay.
11-1 Notre Dame, and let's say they dominate Georgia Tech and Stanford. And a 12-1 either Oklahoma or Oklahoma State. I don't know if it makes a difference to you which one it is, but we'll say 12-1 Big 12 champ. Those four teams.
You're saying that Ohio State went undefeated in this scenario, is that right? Like they won out, rather.
Yes.
Ohio State wins out, so they're in, right?
So basically,
Georgia is also in.
The reason, I guess, for just saying that is that means the Michigan schools both have 2 losses at least. So those 4 teams
for 2 spots,
depending on what Oregon is doing, it's either those 4 teams for 2 spots or those 4 teams for 1 spot. Because I do think if Oregon wins out, like they have to be in. They have an impressive win. They went to the horseshoe.
That's right.
So.
That's right.
Undefeated Cincinnati, 2-loss Alabama, 1-loss Notre Dame, 1-loss Big 12 champ. How do you even begin to order those teams?
I still think Cincinnati would get in. I know a lot of people don't. I believe in Cincinnati. I think that they would probably sneak in there because simply for the fact that they're undefeated and have a really good win. Yeah. At that point, you could say that Cincinnati is a better win than anyone Alabama has beaten this year. Who has Alabama beat that's massively impressive? I guess Ole Miss. You could the Ole Miss would be a good rebuttal to that maybe, but Oklahoma and Oklahoma State would have, I don't think, any argument. Like,
Yeah.
I don't believe, because I don't believe Oklahoma's really beaten anyone, and Oklahoma State hasn't really either. So, like, for me, those would be on the tail end, and I would probably go Cincinnati. Probably Cincinnati getting that last spot, the number 4 spot, and sneaking in is what I think should happen. I don't know if it will.
So let's assume Oregon splits with Utah. Now they have 2 losses. The Pac-12's out.
They're out then. Yeah.
So let's say Cincinnati's 3. That 4th spot comes
Mhm.
down to the Oklahoma schools, 1 loss Notre Dame, 2 loss Alabama. Keeping in mind that 1 seed is Georgia, and Georgia just played Alabama.
Right. I think I'd go Notre Dame. Like, I think 2-loss Alabama's out. Like, I think they're out. Oh, wow. I flip-flop on that one. I can't decide because, okay, the committee loves
They
Alabama.
love them.
So if you're going by what should happen, they should be out.
Yeah.
But they might not be. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Right.
Surely they wouldn't give them a non-conference champ a chance over a 1-loss Notre Dame team whose only loss was to another playoff team. Like, that was their only loss, you know? So hopefully you would give them the benefit of the doubt there.
Yeah. And I will say, like, I think if Alabama would, like, lose the Iron Bowl, but then beat Georgia, like, at that point they would have 2 losses, but they'd be the SEC champ. Like, they would be in at that point, I think, over Notre Dame.
Yeah.
But
the best win of anyone. Yeah.
Yeah. I do think if they're a 2-loss team without a conference title, they would probably be behind Notre Dame in that scenario, in my opinion.
Yeah. Agreed.
We'll see.
If they're not going to lose to Auburn without Bo Nix. Like, I think there was a possibility of that happening because it was a home game for Auburn, and like Bo Nix at home is like a scary thing. He's already beaten them at home, you know?
Yeah.
But yeah, like, they're not going to do it, I don't think, without Bo.
Yeah, it would be a stretch to see that.
But,
yeah. Okay. So kind of the last notable one, Oregon 38, Washington State 24. I didn't watch much of this, very little. But I guess just continuing with the bigger picture question here, do you think Oregon wins out? They'd have to beat Utah twice, most likely. Like, do you think they win out? Do you think they do that, or do you think they split those?
Oregon State's also sneaky good, who they end up at the end of the year.
True.
And if I was putting money on it, I would say that they drop one of those 3 games.
Okay.
Oregon. I think Oregon will drop one of those 3 games. I'm not sure which one. I have a tough time envisioning them going undefeated. Especially, it's hard to beat a team twice. And Utah is fundamentally sound. Like, they're not going to beat themselves, and they're coached well. And then you have Oregon State, you know, in sandwiched in between there. Mm-hmm. I have a tough time seeing them run the table there. So, yeah.
Sure. I think I'm with you there. I could see Oregon winning out, but I think if I had to make a prediction, I'd say they probably don't.
Yeah. I'm rooting for chaos.
Yes, I love me some chaos. Okay, so let's just put a bow on this. Mm. What is your prediction right now for the playoff? What are the 4 teams going to be? We've been able to talk it out a little bit about some different scenarios.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, and you're gonna have to go with me here because I'm gonna hold on to this pick. So Georgia's 1, right? Okay. Obviously, I think that's easy. No one's really gonna disagree with you there. I think Michigan gets in.
Ooh.
I think Michigan gets in. I understand. I understand that I'm betting on Harbaugh. I believe in them though. Like, I think that they can. That game's going to be close, and if they beat Ohio State, I think they get past Wisconsin as well and go to the playoff. So I'm going to put Michigan in there. I think Oregon loses a game and drops. I think obviously Ohio State would lose a game and drop and be out. Cincinnati then gets in for me. Okay. Yep. I think Cincinnati gets in, so it's going to be Georgia, Michigan, Cincinnati, and that number 4 spot is tough. Like, I'm going to say Notre Dame. Like, I'm going to say Notre Dame sneaks in there. I think there's going to be a lot of teams. There's going to be a lot of losses that are still coming, given like the teams that we have to play each other. Everyone's just assuming that these rankings are just going to stay pat. No, like, these teams have to play each other. Georgia has to play Alabama. Like, that's going to happen. And yeah, the Michigan schools they have to play Ohio State, and I don't think Ohio State's going to get past both of them in back-to-back weeks. Mm-hmm. So like, yeah, the Oklahoma schools have to play still. Whereas like Cincinnati and Notre Dame are going to kind of cruise in, and you might be able to sneak in there late and grab someone. So that's going to be what I'm going to go with. Georgia would be playing Notre Dame in my scenario. I don't know if you caught that.
It would be fun. That would be very fun.
For me, yes, it would be.
It would be fun leading up to the game, at least.
That's right. Yeah. Do a little zone blitz wager. Going on.
Yes. Okay, I guess I'll give mine too, since I made you do it. Is that fair?
Yeah.
I'm gonna go Georgia 1. I do think they will beat Alabama. Finally, get that monkey off their back. I'm gonna go Ohio State too. I just think they're better than the Michigan schools in Wisconsin. I would think
real quick. You would be saying that they would win 4 ranked games in a row. That's what you would be saying. And you know what I'm saying? Like that's kind of where it gets me a little bit.
I do think that Michigan State, and Wisconsin are probably like not deserving wise, but as far as how good they actually are, I think they're more properly ranked, probably like in the 10 to 20 range. Like as far as how good I actually think they are. I might be wrong on that. Like there's a chance Michigan is better than that.
Right.
But I do think Ohio State's offense is so good. Like I just don't think I can see the Michigan schools hanging with them. Michigan State has a pretty bad pass defense.
Yes, they do.
I don't know if you've heard, but Ohio State is pretty good at passing the ball.
They can throw the ball. Yeah, I've heard.
Yeah. So I'm going to go Georgia, then Ohio State. I think I'm going to go Cincinnati 3. And I guess, man, like, I also think Oregon's going to lose, so I'm going to go Notre Dame 4. Now watch Bama screw this up and beat Georgia and have both of them make it. Like, yeah. And maybe that would be better for Notre Dame. I don't know. Not having to play Georgia. But no, like you want a chance to win it all. You want the chance. As a Notre Dame fan, yeah, I know we're not nearly as good as Georgia, but I would still, if given the choice, I would still want to make the playoff. You can still tell recruits you made it 3 out of 4 years.
Helps with recruiting. It helps with recruiting. That matters.
Yes. Okay, now you don't have to watch the rest of the season. We told you what's going to happen. So there you go, people.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay. Any closing thoughts before we wrap this up?
The next 2 weeks are going to be a lot of fun. Like I think we're going to have chaos in the last 2 weeks.
Yes.
There's going to be a lot of losses happening. Must watch TV for these last 2 weeks.
Absolutely. Can't wait.
Yes.
All right. Thanks, Ashton. It's been a good time. Thanks everybody for listening. Have a great week and God bless.